Previously on the Gemini Hammer Show. Alright, fine, let's go ahead and get into it. So, what happened when you finally came back to work? Going back to work at UPS, the trigger finger came back. But this time, it was a different area of the same finger. So did you report this one? Of course. Like, people had been reassigned, people had been promoted. The management that I had dealt with in the last video wasn't in the same position. Once I reported it, I was told, and I quote, "Somebody will be over to speak with you very soon." Nobody came over to speak with me. I made a decision that I was going to do everything myself. Not only did I file for workers' comp, I also submitted all the documentation myself. Now, including myself, there were 5 entities involved in this situation. The result was only 4 out of 5 of the entities involved submitted documentation. It was around this time where I went ahead and had the second surgery done. And my finger wasn't done yet. And so it was that moment that I made a promise to myself. If your employer doesn't submit documentation, the entirety of the workers' compensation claim gets denied. Just like before, I just ended up going right back to work. Something had started to grow inside of me. I needed something to ignite that flame.
He's Gemini Hammer, rage and grace. The good side preaches and the bad side breaks. A skeleton face in a streaming storm. He's a double-edged soul, beautifully deformed. Too much flash in a digital cage. He's peace and war on the same damn stage.
Alright, Gemini, I don't mean to be rude, but how much longer until you lose your finger? I will lose it at the end of this episode. Really? Oh, well, please, let's waste no time. So, what happened after you went back to work after your second surgery? Well, for a few weeks, everything went pretty smoothly. Unfortunately, while I was gone, all the management, again, had been rearranged. So when I finally got back to work, I had a new manager who was overseeing my area. This supervisor, and I shit you not, this is exactly what they go by, was a guy named Hypo. Seen here, being very happy after finally being able to unbutton that suit jacket. So, the supervisor in question gave me an order that I declined to do because I had previously submitted documentation for a pre-existing heart condition, which got me out of the area that I was told to go to. Because I disobeyed the supervisor's order, he decided to sit me down and attempt to have a talk with me. A talk which resulted in this supervisor going against ADA. And for those of you who don't know what ADA is, it's the Americans with Disabilities Act. And it protects people with health conditions and disabilities, so that way they don't face discrimination in a workplace. The supervisor got really upset with me because I disobeyed his orders. And because of that, he demanded to see documentation of my heart condition. Like right then and right there. I mean, it sounds pretty reasonable. I mean, I'm sure to a point. Yeah, well, I informed the supervisor that the documentation that he was requesting should be on file in my employee file for the company. So it was right after that little escapade that I began my search. I started asking everybody and submitting requests for documentation. Would you like to know what I found out eventually? What did you find out? I found out that the only thing that they had on file for me medically at that point was the workers' comp claim for the second injury. Everything before that, non existent. And that is when the fire got lit. So, what did you do after that? Unfortunately, not much for a little while, because wasn't too long after that I ended up rupturing the second tendon in my finger, which left me with one. No way, another injury? This one sounds pretty bad. Yep, another injury. And before anybody asks, yes, it was reported and it was documented from the moment that it happened. In fact, the company's the one that took me to the hospital. Now, obviously, I did the same thing I did with the second surgery, and I filed for workers' compensation. Little did I know that the stupidity was about to begin hardcore. What does that mean? Let me explain. Not only did my company deny my workers' comp claim, but they also told me that I couldn't be worked until the finger situation was resolved 100%. Okay, that doesn't sound too horrible. No, it wasn't too horrible. Aside from the fact that they tried to tell me a day early, and a union steward had to tell them to stop after they had already told me. Okay, I'm going to be honest, that doesn't sound great. It gets so worse from there. So it was at that point where I got told, quote unquote, I couldn't be legally worked until the finger situation was resolved 100%. Now, do you remember what I said after the second surgery? Yeah, you said you made a promise to yourself that you were going to keep. Right. So that promise was to have the finger removed should anything else happen. And with my company telling me that they couldn't work me until the situation was resolved 100%, they essentially said exactly what I said. And with that, I finally decided it was time to go ahead and have the finger removed. Now, it was at this point that I was off work. They denied all my stuff. And I ended up having 3 industrial commission hearings for workers' compensation that I won unanimously all 3 of. And this, of course, came after I hired my attorney. That's infuriating because never had to do that before, but my company had to be the first one. So after 8 months of fighting, 8 months of just the dumbest bullshit fuckery that I had to deal with, The Industrial Commission finally agreed in a final ruling that I was going to be able to have the finger amputated. It was at this point that, also after hiring my attorney, I finally got the compensation for the back pay. That was a godsend. And just in time for Christmas, okay, a few days after Christmas, I got the official approval to have the finger removed. And so it was all set. Now I just needed to fully prepare myself for what was to come. And how exactly did you prepare yourself? There was a lot of mental preparations, and there was also a lot of physical preparation. Like, what's some of the stuff that you did? So, for starters, I ended up making a pro and cons list for having the finger removed. Honestly, it was about equal as far as pros and cons. And then I also trained myself how to write my name with 3 fingers. I taught myself how to cook, how to sew, how to basically live everyday life with the loss of the finger. It was very time consuming. It was very mentally taxing, sometimes physically taxing, especially trying to build up calluses by holding a pencil or a pen. That was a real pain in the, well, hand. And how long did it take you to master all of this new training? Believe it or not very long. Um, I kind of just took to it. And that's when it finally happened. I got a call from my doctor. January the 14th of 2025 would be the day that the amputation would take place. Now, I was a nervous wreck all the way up until that day. The night before, I couldn't even sleep. But finally, the day came. I'll never forget it. Going into the hospital, waiting hours. Finally, doctors came in, put the IV in. They took me back to the OR. The next time that I woke up, a part of me was gone forever. Oh wow, Gemini. Are you okay? You you seem like this is kind of hitting you hard, but you still seem kind of laid back by it. Yeah, it was an inevitability, almost like Thanos. Then I woke up and I had 3 fingers. I had my demon hand. So what happened after the amputation? Well, I healed, and for the last time, I went back to work. What happened after you went back to work? That's going to be a story for part 4, but it's going to be fun. So, if you liked everything you saw today, Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, leave a comment, let us know what you think. Are you on the side of the worker or are you on the side of the company? Let me know down in the comments. But anyway, that's going to do it for me. I have been Gemini Hammer, and I am G-Mini. I'm just really glad that the story's almost done. You and me both. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
He's Gemini Hammer, rage and grace. The good side preaches and the bad side breaks. A skeleton face in a streaming